My name is Kelly. I am a 35-year-old company employee, living at home while supporting my mother, who overcame a serious illness. Life is busy, and I've had to put aside dreams I once had, like getting married by 28 and having children by 30. Now I've decided never to marry and to become a strong, independent woman living alone. What I cherish most are the weekends, when I enjoy a parfait with my mother at a new cafe nearby. Mom, shall we go to the cafe this weekend? I heard they have a new strawberry parfait. Wouldn't that be nice? That sounds delicious. Let's go. I'm looking forward to it, she replied. It seems that my mother enjoys these outings with me just as much as I do. Weekdays are so hectic, but having something to look forward to keeps us going. Then it's settled, I said. Let's do our best until Saturday. And Mom, don't overdo it. 3 years ago, my mother underwent heart surgery. At one point, we even prepared for the worst, but she recovered miraculously and is still with us today. She goes to the hospital every 2 weeks for regular checkups and treatments, and though she takes a lot of medication, she's living healthily by making exercise a habit. Kelly, thank you so much. Because of you, I've been able to stay healthy. I thought it was all over back then, but I'm so glad I worked hard on the treatment, she said. Although my mother usually has to restrict her diet, once a month, her doctor allows her to enjoy whatever she likes. My mother looks forward to this opportunity for our outings, and though you might think it's odd for a 35-year-old to still live at home and enjoy outings with her mother, I'm happy. It's precious time for me. My father isn't very talkative, but he always seems to enjoy listening to our conversations. The exchanges between you and Kelly are like a comedy sketch, he'd say. It's entertaining to listen to. We're just enjoying some girl talk, I'd reply with a laugh. My father runs a company and works hard, so he comes home exhausted every day. His routine is to relax on the living room sofa, watching TV after having a beer and a snack. Though he delegates some of the work to employees now and doesn't have as much physical strain as before, he used to handle everything himself. I'm proud of my father, who works tirelessly for our family. However, recently, he's had days when he hasn't been feeling well. It wouldn't be surprising if he named a successor soon due to his age, but he's reluctant to do so. Hey, Dad, I asked, don't you plan to let James take over the company? You seem pretty exhausted, don't you? I have an older brother, James, who is 2 years older than me. I've always thought it would be better for my father to hand over the company to someone else. I will never let James take over, my father said firmly. I'd rather hand it over to someone else than give it to him. Okay, I understand. Originally, my father and my brother did not get along well, and they've been clashing frequently since James became an adult. It seems their relationship hasn't improved even now. If I let him manage the company, it would be ruined within a month. He doesn't just lack business knowledge. He's also too reckless with money. I can't entrust the company to someone like that, my father said angrily. I had wondered what had happened between them, but when I asked my mother, she mentioned that James had some financial troubles during his college years. At that time, our financial situation was tough until the company took off, so I chose to attend a less expensive public high school to support our family. However, James attended a costly private school and spent his time playing without working part-time. Even after James became an adult, my father asked him several times to help with the company. Why should I help out with such a failing company? You started it because you liked it, so deal with it yourself, he refused. Moreover, James repeatedly used the company's money for his nightlife, eventually becoming uncontrollable. It seems my parents didn't want to show me their struggles and had kept quiet about James' issues for a long time. I wonder why James became so selfish. We raised both of you the same way, and we didn't spoil him in particular, my mother said sadly. Indeed, James was always full of complaints and sarcasm and had a narrow-minded personality. This year, James turned 37 and is set to marry his girlfriend, who is 7 years younger than him. After a long relationship, just a week ago, I received a call from him saying he would come to greet us. However, he called me instead of our parents. Next week, I'm bringing my girlfriend over. It's a visit with the intention of marriage, so I can't invite her to a messy house, right? So make sure to tell Dad and Mom to prepare for hosting us and tidy up, he said. Why are you telling me this? Why don't you talk to them directly? I asked, not quite understanding his motive. His way of speaking was as unpleasant as ever. It didn't sit right with me to relay this, but to avoid a sudden visit without our parents knowing, I decided to tell them the same day. James is getting married. He said he's coming next weekend with his girlfriend for the greetings, so we should clean the rooms and prepare to host them. He should have said it himself instead of asking me. His character hasn't changed a bit, I told them. My parents sighed heavily and were silent for a while. However, my parents hoped that if the marriage went well, he might visit less frequently and spend less money. Let's make sure to handle this greeting properly, as if it were the last, my father said with determination. Then the weekend arrived, and James brought his fiancée to our family home. It's been a while. Sorry I couldn't get in touch sooner. I think Kelly told you, but I'm getting married to my girlfriend, James said. Nice to meet you. I'm Sophia. Please remember me. His fiancée introduced herself with a smug attitude, a smirk on her face. She was wearing a miniskirt and heavy makeup, hardly appropriate for a marriage introduction. Our family was stunned, but James seemed completely unconcerned, making them a matching pair in a way. Amid the tense atmosphere, my mother tried to lighten the mood by asking, "Do you work somewhere?" Sophia's face turned angry. Huh? What work? I'm not working right now, but is there a problem? I aim to be a housewife, and I have no intention of working after marriage, so I won't be helping out at your company. Despite no one in the family having mentioned my father's company, she provocatively threw that out. Her words clearly angered my parents and me, but we decided not to stoop to her level and silently endured the situation. After they left, we discussed our feelings thoroughly. What on earth was that fiancé thinking? She spoke as if she was looking down on my company. What does James see in such a rude and presumptuous woman? It's really terrible. Are all people these days like that? I'd rather not deal with her if possible, my mother added. Of course not, Mom. Don't lump us together with her. That evening, the topic of my brother and his fiancée dominated our dinner conversation, and the three of us agreed to keep our distance from James and his future wife as much as possible. Later, James contacted us again. It seems that things are progressing smoothly towards the marriage, but they plan to register the marriage first and decide on the wedding ceremony later. Make sure to tell Dad and Mom to prepare a wedding gift early. You're a working adult, so I'm counting on you, my brother said, even pressing me for a wedding gift. To avoid any complaints later, I wrapped a gift amount larger than usual and handed it directly to James. Later, I received a thank you call from his wife, Sophia, but it was clear she was eating during the conversation. Thank you for the gift. I thought your father's company was about to go out of business, so I'm lucky to have received this gift money, she said. What? What do you mean by going out of business? My father's company has about 30 employees and is operating without any problems, I retorted, but Sophia just laughed mockingly. Unsatisfied with her response, I hurriedly ended the call. Her disrespectful remarks, as if insulting my father, made me very sad. A month later, an unexpected event occurred in our family. I had taken a day off to accompany my mother to the hospital, but our rarely used home phone rang that morning. We were even considering canceling the landline service since we hardly used it anymore, so the sudden ring startled me. Hello, I answered, and it was an employee from my father's company on the line. The voice was very disturbed and trembling. Something terrible has happened. The president suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed. We've called an ambulance, and he's being transported to the hospital now. Could the family please head to the hospital? My mother, who was preparing for her regular checkup, noticed me pale with the receiver in hand and immediately grasped the situation. Kelly, what happened? Is everything okay? Dad collapsed and has been taken to the hospital by ambulance. We need to hurry, Mom. We decided to take a taxi to the hospital we were directed to. On the way, we were overwhelmed by anxiety but continued to pray for my father's safety. Upon arriving at the hospital and rushing to the reception, We mentioned my father's name and were immediately directed to the emergency department. Soon, a stern-faced nurse arrived and said, "Please come this way to the room." She led us to the hospital room. With trembling hands, I'd opened the door, and there lay my father, who had already passed away. As my mother and I stood in stunned silence, the doctor explained the situation. At the time of transport, when the ambulance arrived, he was in cardiac arrest. We tried resuscitation to the best of our abilities, but he never regained consciousness, and unfortunately, this was the result. I'm very sorry. My father had suffered an acute myocardial infarction, and nothing more could have been done. The suddenness of it all made it difficult for us to accept reality. But seeing my father's peaceful face, I remembered how he had worked tirelessly for us every day. It felt like he might finally be able to rest, which brought me a slight sense of relief. I had informed my brother about the situation on our way to the hospital. "I'm at work and can't just leave like you can. It's probably nothing serious, so don't make such a big deal out of it." He responded coldly before abruptly hanging up. Even after I informed him of our father's death, his insensitive reply came, "I see. Well, that was just his time, I guess. It's better than him becoming an old burden." It was hard to believe he was part of the same family. I felt a deep contempt for my brother. While my mother and I were engulfed in sorrow, time did not stop for us, and we had to proceed with the funeral preparations. During this time, the thought of my father's company suddenly crossed my mind. "What will happen to the company? There are employees depending on it," I murmured. Then my mother pulled out a notebook. "This is a manual for managing the business that your father had been working on for a long time. If you're willing, Kelly, he wanted you to take over the company. What do you think?" The thick notebook she handed me was packed with information and know-how my father had gathered to develop the company. His presence was immense, and the hole in my heart would not be filled. However, once the funeral was over, I would have to face reality. "I'll do it, Mom. I'll try my best," I said. There was no reason for me to refuse. Deep down, I had always felt that someday I might need to take over my father's business. The funeral was scheduled for the following day. At the funeral, my brother and his wife made an unbelievable statement. "Hey Kelly, how long do you plan to mooch off our parents and live at home?" "What do you mean by that?" I couldn't understand why they would bring this up at such a time or why it was necessary to discuss it now. But buoyed by their own fervor, they continued, "You're just a parasite living off Mom. As the eldest son, I will take over the management of the company. Pack your bags and get out of here. I can't believe you're living at home at your age, depending on your parents. Live a more independent life." His wife then threw water in my face from a glass and laughed loudly. I couldn't take it anymore. There was no reason for me to be insulted so unreasonably. I wouldn't let this go. I vowed to cut ties with these two and retaliate against them by any means necessary. "Fine, I'll leave this house," I declared. When I said I would leave, they were unnaturally pleased. "Now Dad's company and the house will be mine. Plus, if we live with Mom, we can manage her pension." "That's right, James. What a great idea. We'll be rich. And if you're the president, I'll be the president's wife. Doesn't that sound wonderful?" They were gleefully discussing their future. To maximize their discomfort, I decided to keep the fact that I would be taking over the company hidden until after the funeral. Revealing it now would ruin everything. Pretending to be upset, I packed my bags and left the house as they had demanded. During the funeral, James pompously told my father's employees, "From now on, as the eldest son, I will be taking over the company. Please support me." Even as everyone was mourning my father's passing, James continued with such remarks, completely ignoring the mood of the gathering. "He's hopeless," my mother sighed, dismayed. Only my foolish brother and his wife remained unaware of the entire truth. Even after the funeral ended smoothly, the busy days continued with various administrative tasks. During this time, I noticed over 100 missed calls and messages left on my answering machine from my brother. I decided to answer the next call. "Hey, what the hell did you do?" "When I went to Dad's company, they told me the next president is his daughter. I haven't heard anything about this. I am the president. I've even quit my job at the other company." My brother ranted in anger. His statements were disjointed, showing he didn't understand the situation he was in. He had excitedly gone to the company to introduce himself as the new president, only to be coldly received and pied by all the employees. How could Dad leave his precious company to someone like you, who only thinks about herself? And I heard you and your wife are deep in gambling debts. What? How do you know that? I haven't told anyone. In reality, when I resigned from my previous job, I had mentioned taking over my father's company. When you have a sibling, it's a good idea to do a background check. There's often trouble involving money, my former boss had advised me. At first, I didn't understand what he meant, but just to be safe, I investigated my brother and his wife. It turned out they were swamped in gambling debts. I had you and your wife investigated. How were you planning to repay those mounting debts? Were you planning to use the money Dad left behind? Is that why you wanted to kick me out and move back home? It's shockingly short-sighted. Why? How could this? My brother stammered. It turned out that the debts, including those of his wife, had piled up to the point of no return. But I would never allow them to count on Dad's estate. Anyway, it's already decided that I will take over Dad's company. That was his last wish. The lawyer will soon confirm the will, but I don't think there will be a single penny left for you two. What? That's a lie. Through the phone, I could sense my brother's panic, and I silently celebrated in my heart. Then the call was passed to my sister-in-law, Sophia, who lashed out at me in anger. Listen here. Your brother is suffering, so as his sister, you should help him. You have no heart. You're the worst. I could have retorted in kind, but it would have been a waste of time, so I chose to ignore her. Please pay back the debts you created yourselves. It's irrelevant to me and my mother, so please don't contact us again. Your remaining options are to work hard and pay off the debt or declare bankruptcy. Good luck. Goodbye. Wait a minute. Listen to me until the end. I could hear her screaming from the handset, but I hung up the phone. They would now be chased by debt repayment and likely live in poverty for the rest of their lives. It was a fitting consequence for relying on my father's money and not valuing family. If they suffered even a bit as a couple, it would serve them right. Subsequent messages were left on my answering machine a few times. Currently, my brother and his wife have started working at a new factory. But their marital strife continues daily, and it seems a divorce is imminent. I do not want them to interfere in any way as I work to grow the company, so I intend to completely cut ties with them. Thus, my plan for revenge was successfully completed.